any video requests, let me know down in the comments. I can find and narrate Sasquatch encounters, from a particular province if you'd like, state, or any other location. Also, it doesn't have to be a Sasquatch encounter either. I like to make some other videos on other types of cryptids as well. So please let me know what you think. So this first sighting I'm going to read to you takes place in a location that you would least expect here in Canada, and that is Saskatchewan. I know for some of you this may be shocking, because when Canadians think about Sasquatch, places like British Columbia or Alberta usually come to mind, not Saskatchewan. But do keep an open mind when hearing this encounter. I certainly do believe this one to be true. Anything is possible. And as you know, these Bigfoot-type creatures have been spotted literally all over the world. So I don't think it's too impossible for sightings in Saskatchewan. Also, if you're listening to this and aren't too familiar with Saskatchewan, it is basically one of the more prairie-filled provinces here in Canada. However, the northern part of the province is heavily forested, and the population of people is quite sparse up there. Anyways, let's get back to reading about this encounter. Saskatchewan, September 15th, 2005. I went out duck hunting to a spot near Waukau, Saskatchewan that I've been going to for a few years now. It had rained heavily on the day before I went, and the fields were quite wet and muddy. While walking to a good shooting pond, I stumbled across something that was very strange. The crops had been cut, and the swaths were still laying in the field. As I stepped over a swath, I noticed there was something white under it. I lifted the swath and found 7 dead turds, which are small black-headed seagulls. They had not decomposed at all and looked as though they'd not been there for long, and had been packed together in a big clump, not scattered about. There were no visible injuries on them. At first I didn't know what to think. Then I just figured somehow a raccoon had caught them and stashed them there, because they have tendencies to do things like that with their food. I didn't think any more about it and went on to shoot a few ducks and started back to my truck to go home because it was starting to rain. Then my luck ran out. As soon as I got moving, my truck slid off the shoulder of the mud road and into the ditch. I was stuck big time, so I started walking to go find a farmer to pull me out. As I was walking along the main grid road that connected to the trail my truck was stuck on, I saw something I will never forget. It was raining pretty good, and I had my face looking down towards the road, but some movement ahead of me caught my eye. I saw something. It didn't seem very tall, but I was a couple hundred yards away from it. But it was big, I mean real big, wide across the shoulders and no neck, just like a big giant head sitting on huge shoulders and short little legs and long arms. It was moving extremely fast, but not running. It was heading down the ditch of this little valley I was walking through. I saw it for maybe 3 or 4 strides. Then it disappeared into some trees that were at the bottom. The valley was very narrow, but also very long, and trees covered the whole bottom of it. It freaked me out. I had to have crossed the road right in front of me, but I had my head down and didn't see it until I had crossed the road was soaked real good, so the footprint was full of water, maybe 16 inches long, but probably 5 or 6 inches across the ball of the foot. The thing I saw was dark brownish, reddish, an unusual color. I've never heard of Sasquatch sightings in the area, and I have not told many people about this because I fear being thought as some kind of nut. I don't know if the dead birds had anything to do with it, but they were found only a few hundred yards from the top of the small valley that creature disappeared into. This next encounter is one of the more intriguing encounters I've come across. A very detailed, close-up sighting that takes place on Vancouver Island, which is an island located on the coast of southern British Columbia. And just to paint a picture for you, Vancouver Island has an area of 31,000 square kilometers, which is about 3 times the size of Hawaii. It's by no means a giant island, but it's not exactly a tiny one either. The center of the island contains a very mountainous region, the highest point being Golden Hind Mountain, which stands over 2,000 meters tall, or 7,000 feet. As I was doing some more research about Vancouver Island, I was watching some videos, some mountain scramblers, hikers. It's not really, when you think of island, you normally think, oh, like beaches, sand, flat areas, maybe some grassy hills, but no, it's like rocky mountains up there, well, in there. Vancouver Island, BC, Canada, June 1988. The area is a mountain river valley at the base of a mountain, mostly Douglas fir and Sitka spruce, with a lot of poplars, birch, and scrub brush down near the river. Quite remote from nearby civilization, as it is 10 miles or so farther off the very end of a barricaded logging road, which has a few summer cottages. This happened between 6 a.m. and 7 every morning over the course of the last week of June. The closest water would be the Nanaimo River in the farthest of its lakes. I was on a solitary fishing trip / retreat and had a tent set up in the valley of the river. Every morning around noon at the same time, I was awakened by sounds of several voices, hooting and sort of chattering, like the apes you see on wildlife TV specials. I was scared stiff the first time, peeked out the tent flap, and saw a family group of 4 man-like creatures splashing around in the river, a male, a female, and twins. This happened every day, starting on the second morning I crawled out of the tent and just sat watching. They noticed me and felt like the youngsters wanted to investigate, but the adults held them back. On the last morning, I was up and out of the tent and making breakfast by the time they arrived. Instead of going to the water, they sat down watching me. Talk about unnerving. If only I had taken a camera, I could have gotten some truly amazing shots just then. The adult male stood about 8 feet tall and was massively built throughout the chest and shoulders, large biceps and thighs. His hair was almost black and about 4 inches long on his head and neck, gradually becoming around an inch long on the rest of him. Actually, it seemed to form a sort of longer girdle on the pelvic area. All their faces were similar, with a Cro-Magnon sort of look, brow ridge, and deep-set dark brown eyes. There was no hair around the eyes or mouth area, slighter build. Her coloring was almost the color of an orangutan. She also looked to weigh about half of his weight. The little twins. I call them so because they were identical in all their respects, except there was a male and female. Their fur was not like the adults. It was more like fuzz that you see on a puppy or kitten until the adult coat grows in. When I say little ones, I mean little. They were only tabletop height at best and trotted around just like human babies do during their first few years. I have never told anyone about this because the place would have turned into a circus sideshow. In closing, I would like to say that these are gentle, caring, and family-orientated creatures. They showed me no aggression, and if I'd been able to stay longer, I might have been able to befriend them. They are a miracle as far as I'm concerned. They have restored my faith in the mystical wonders of nature. Please do not do anything to destroy their peacefulness. Maggie Holloway. That was a really great story. I feel like the person that wrote this story into the Bigfoot Encounters website, they must have had really good energy about them if the Bigfoot were curious and not aggressive. Sometimes you read stories and the Bigfoot are throwing rocks and they're very aggressive. I'm gonna continue this video with yet another encounter on Vancouver Island. As I was reading up on Canadian Bigfoot encounters, I noticed that there are quite a few sightings in this location, and so I decided to find out some more information